Imagine waking up in the morning and seeing a looped ballet recording of Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky on all TV channels. It would mean that something went really wrong in the country, and it was indeed. In the early 90s, Russia underwent a transformation and a collapse of the Soviet Union. The year 1991 marked the signing of the Belaveja Accords, leading to the final dissolution of the USSR and the creation of the Commonwealth of the Independent States.
Протокол к Минскому соглашению о создании Содружества независимых государств Республик Беларусь, Российской Федерации и Украины.
The transition to a market economy and democracy proved challenging. Economic difficulties and political instability led to tension in society. Yeltsin's motivation was to strengthen his power and eliminate opposition. This period was a turning point in the political and social life of the country. In September 1993, Yeltsin delivered a decisive speech accusing the parliament of attempting to overthrow the government.
С сегодняшнего дня прерывается осуществление законодательной, распорядительной и контрольной функций Съезда народных депутатов и Верховного Совета Российской Федерации.
This led to the dissolution of the Supreme Soviet and the Russian Supreme Soviet, the beginning of a conflict that would tear the country apart. His decision was anti-constitutional, but Yeltsin had to do something to make changes and create a democratic country. Parliament responded with impeachment proceedings against Yeltsin, challenging the legality of his actions. This became a catalyst for escalating tensions and subsequent events. The folk split it in two, those who supported Yeltsin and those who supported the Supreme Soviet, mainly nationalist group and those political groups who could benefit from the president's impeachment. But it's important to say that the president's decision had much more support from the citizens. People were simply tired of poorness and hunger and were opportunistic towards Western democracy. The situation worsened as the television center became a target of siege.
Молодежь, боеспособные мужчины, в узде с левой части строятся формировать отряды, и надо сегодня штурмом взять мэрию и Останкино.
Уважаемые телезрители, в связи с вооруженной осадой телекомпании «Останкино» мы вынуждены прервать эфир.
Militaries had to react and started the fire on those who tried to siege TV center. The main problem was that the area around the siege was populated with tourists and citizens who had nothing to do with the conflict. Over 100 victims caused the siege of TV center. This chaos moved to the streets of Moscow. Unknown snipers were operating from the tops of the buildings. The next move of the militaries was to bring the tanks and military forces to the White House where the official was still sitting. Members of the parliament were presented with the option to relinquish their powers in exchange for material benefits and political immunity. While this proposition aimed at a diplomatic resolution, it failed to garner widespread support. There were countless military personnel in the city, but their actions were chaotic. They had no means of communications between the units, which led to clashes between armed groups in Moscow. The officer corps of the armed forces manned the tanks poised for action. The siege of the White House began, and the tanks opened fire on the building. This dramatic moment is etched in history as one of the most tragic episodes of the conflict. The storming of the White House took place from 3rd to 4th October. Several hundred civilians and military personnel lost their lives during these military actions. The infrastructure was paralyzed. The streets of Moscow were filled with spectators, and Western media closely monitored the events in real time. The conflict unfolded in close proximity to Western embassies, including the US Embassy. It was unprecedented to the Western world to witness Russia in such vulnerable position, prompting active diplomatic responses from global leaders.
Another shot from the cannon tank into the front of the Russian White House.
The entire world was alarmed and awaited further developments. The Alpha Group special forces involved in the conflict engaged in negotiation with representatives of the White House. These moments significantly influenced the course of the crisis. The siege concluded, people were evacuated, but the price for this crisis lingered for a long time. In the aftermath of the Supreme Soviet dismissal, President Boris Yeltsin ushered a new parliament. This move was intended to reinstate order and stability in the country, but left a lingering sense of political instability. While Yeltsin was the one who de facto broke the law, in his explanatory speech he employed the term organized rebellion and underscored the necessity of suppressing the uprising.
Все, что происходило и пока происходит в Москве, заранее спланированный вооруженный мятеж.
Today it seems like Russia is going back to political and social situation people in 90s worked so hard to move past. Power is concentrated, there aren't many political freedoms, and democratic limits are coming back. We can only hope that one day Russia will wake up and see the Swan Lake on Russian TV screens again.